You are now entering a dangerous liberty zone where God-given natural rights are held sacred and exercised. This is your warning. Tyranny, fascism, and censorship will not be tolerated. Ideas will be exchanged freely. Rigorous debate and open discourse is encouraged. If you are weak and your beliefs are fragile, you should leave now. Prepare yourself. We are now live on the Dangerous Liberty Podcast. All right, folks, welcome to the Dangerous Liberty Podcast, where we know that safety at the expense of liberty is slavery. I want to say hi to everybody coming in. Not only everybody here, and of course our Lost Boys over on Rumble. We'll switch back over there and see how you guys are doing from time to time. But also anybody watching this in the future, folks, come join us live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. We do this so that you guys can jump in on the conversation and not just scream there. We read your comments, we answer your questions, all those good things. Summer, how was your week?
Good so far.
Sweet. Sean?
Sorry, I'm just tying up some sands for work.
You've been away for a while. What's been going on, man?
I've been working a lot.
You've been working. Mike Hinn. Hello. John Rollins. Jason TG Sponsler. Riddell 138 Rents. Will, Rensler Lives, Brian Savage, everybody else that's tuning in, make sure you say hi and we'll try to recognize you. We got a great show for you tonight. As a matter of fact, what we're going to do is go ahead and introduce our two guests. We have Romeo and Matt. They are from American Patriot News. I think, just talking with them, we are definitely aligned from a ideological standpoint. You know what? We stand for freedom. That's really what we have in common. I don't know what their, political leanings are or any of that other stuff, but I think we believe in freedom of speech and we believe in, having an America that's free. That's what it's really about. So if you guys will, Romeo, Matt, if you guys will just introduce yourself to everybody, tell us who you are, what you're about, and then we'll kind of get into it.
I'm Romeo from Kenosha, Wisconsin. I went to school in Ohio, got a degree in history. I was in the auto industry for 25 years, retired, and got into podcasting because of the 2020 election.
Interesting. What happened in the 2020 election?
Well, I think there was industrial scale fraud that was outcome determinative.
All right. I like it. Matt.
Yep. Hey, I'm Matt, and I live in West Virginia, and I'm actually from Texas originally, and I met my wife here, and I decided to stay here for 20 years now. And I got into podcasting because of what happened in the 2020 election, and I also worked in the oil field for about 15 years before I got into podcasting. And that's about it. Oh, and I'd say my political leanings is more libertarian.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm very pro First and Second Amendment. Let's just say that.
Yeah, if I was to put myself in any sort of category, it would definitely be libertarian. I believe, just government stay out of my way. Let us do our thing, and then we can kind of go about our everyday lives as the founders intended it. So I think we got a lot to talk about. Number one, make sure you like, subscribe. Not only subscribe, folks, make sure that you are hitting that bell icon, but in that bell icon, again, we are getting lots of folks telling us that anytime that we're putting out new videos, even though they're subscribed, even though they've hit that like button, YouTube will still determine if they don't like your content, which, they don't really like ours. And Matt and Romeo and I we're going to talk about some of those things. But if they don't like your content, they still don't even notify you. So make sure you hit that notification button and hit all. Make sure you hit all. Hopefully that will mitigate that a little bit, and we'll get around their crazy algorithm just a little. But yeah, so you guys contacted me. I think we were talking, Romeo, via X, and I think you guys found us due to some of the Trump assassination attempt videos that I put out. And you and I kind of talked back and forth. We've been trying to get this thing lined up for a little while, and I'm glad to have you guys on. And first of all, let's talk a little bit about your YouTube channel, because you guys, I was looking through your content today. You guys are putting out some great stuff over there at American Patriot News. Tell us kind of like what your guys' intent is behind that.
Well, I think our intent is to just inform people. It's not some of the information I gave, like today, we talked about weather modification. It's not all stuff I believe. I give you information, you can look into it for yourself, but I also give my opinion on what could be happening as well. But I tend to lean on the realistic side of things more than
Sure.
some people do. Perfect example is if you look at the Trump assassination. When I first saw the video of someone being on the tower, my first thing was like, this. It looks like a shadow, And then I went through all the possibilities, and then if you look at the trajectory, I was like, this. He would have to go through the TV there, where you had, there's no way it would hit him. They didn't have a clear line of sight. And that's how I look at weather modification a lot. I was like, this. Look.
Well, that is actually a great topic. I want to talk about that. We didn't talk about that particular topic, but I think there's some good information on it. Michio Kaku was talking about weather modification and what they were doing with weather modification with lasers over 9 years ago. He was talking, hey, this is reality. This is what we're doing. It was a big piece. I think it was either on CNN or something like that. And that was 9 years ago.
Right.
Who knows what they've done from now? Now, I'm not ready to say that we have the capability of creating hurricanes or something like that, but weather modification and us being able to control the weather, initiate storms to some degree, initiate rainfall to some degree, and initiate lightning. Those are all things that he talked about that they were absolutely doing 9 years ago. Now, to what they're able to scale that up to, I obviously would be speculation on all of our parts, but they are doing it, and we just don't know at what scale. And I think that is an interesting topic that I definitely plan on researching some more. And, Matt, you brought up something I think is really important. Whether it is your narrative or something that you see that's a narrative on your side or whatever you consider, political opposition side, I think it's always good to be skeptical. Yeah. I think that's just the right way to approach it. Romeo.
What was the question?
What do you guys do? What's your intent behind American Patriot News?
Oh, exactly the same. That's why Matt and I work so well together. I would like to help get information out to people because half this country believes something that's completely false. Yeah. I mean, I see all the hatred and the vitriol for Donald Trump, and I sit back and I think, this is I liked Reagan, but Donald Trump, he doesn't have to do any of the things. He could have sailed into the sunset with billions of dollars and took it easy and played with his grandkids. But this guy comes into the White House and he works 16-hour days. He impressed me in his first 4 years, what he did with, I don't agree with every single thing, but economic policy and having, he stood behind the Church of Jesus Christ. That was one thing. He had people praying in the Oval Office, and I don't remember that happening at another time. But, to bring it in, and basically, I want to make sure that there's a voice out there of opposition. We do a lot of segments where we look at things like The View, where they say things. And, I feel bad for people who believe that kind of stuff, who believe Trump is, such a terrible character. I don't see it. I don't think an argument can be made, a rational argument, that Trump is anything more than he is advertised, someone who loves America and wants to do the right thing.
Yeah, I wish there would be what I think we all agree on, whether you're on the left or the right. I think we can agree that money in politics is a real problem. And, not so much when it comes to advertising and things like that. I think that is part of the First Amendment. There's some things that I don't like taking place that I disagree with in the way that is executed. But the premise of it, obviously, I think, if I want to be able to donate X amount of dollars to somebody and do whatever for a specific cause, I think that's important to be able to do. And I do think that is protected by the Constitution. With that being said, I think one of our biggest problems, or one of the greatest things that we could do to change the trajectory of our country, is number one, term limits and number two, somehow get rid of money out of politics for the politicians.
Right.
You know, I think a lot of these people go into politics, whether they're on the left or the right. You know, they're making $60,000, $70,000 a year in a couple of years in Congress, whether as a representative or a senator, or, you know, some state and local folks. Suddenly they're making millions and millions of dollars because of insider information that they're able to capitalize on. That's a real problem. And I think if we could somehow get rid of that and get rid of, you know, these lifetime politicians, I think we'd get people in like Donald Trump that don't rely on politics to make a living. And that's the real problem, because they're selling us out. Both sides are selling out the American people left and right. And that's one of the biggest problems up there. One thing I do want to say real quick, for all those folks down in North Carolina and everybody that's been affected by Helene, hey man, you know, we're praying for you guys. We hope you guys are okay. There's a lot of craziness. I started a video on all that craziness, and I haven't been able to finish it yet. More information is coming out on that almost every single day. And of course, now Florida's about to get hit in the next 12 to 24 hours again.
About 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah. So, you know, hopefully you all are making good decisions and you're prepared and all those things. So yeah, nuts out there. Hopefully you guys are good to go. Yeah. So, you know, what have you guys experienced? You know, one of the things that we wanted to talk about was censorship. And I think this is one of the things that people don't realize how bad it is, and how much what you have with YouTube and Google, same company, but that is one of the most effective social engineering apparatuses to ever exist, and maybe will ever exist.
Right.
You know, the way that they're determining what is seen, how it's seen through search results, how things are seen. And it's not even so much what they promote, but again, you're only getting one side of it, either through suppression or through promotion. They're determining what the narrative is. They're determining what people think to be truth. And that is a real problem in this country. And I don't know, it's a very complex issue, especially when you talk about the First Amendment. But, you know, what's your thoughts on that? And what have you guys experienced?
Just real quick, if I can throw a thought in before I lose it, because it will happen. You know, something I was thinking about, especially when it comes to YouTube, is, you know, even when I first heard about YouTube, it was the idea that anyone could upload a video, right? So you've got all these different views and different, it's all organic. Well, I think there's a lot of people that still believe that and don't believe in the suppression, the actual narrative that's being pushed, the agenda that's being pushed. You know, they're thinking, oh, I'm just going to view videos from all these different people. Surely I'm getting all types of different information. And that's just not really what they're seeing at all.
You think you have an equal playing field.
Exactly.
And you don't.
Yeah.
It's not even close to one.
Yeah.
Well, what we've experienced is major suppression depending on the topic.
Sure.
Topics is what matters. Like if you at the time when they're investigating Biden, if we did videos on Biden, boom. You know, if you even have his face on the thumbnail, they have facial recognition. They can pick that up. Boom. They'll lower it down. Certain words when you're live will get their attention. You know, like trafficking, stuff like that. I don't want to go into all the words, but there's a lot of different words that get their attention. I'm sure you realize that with your channel. 100%. And they suppress you a lot, and they're using all sorts of different techniques. I mean, they're even starting to use it in the community post. You know, it's getting pretty out of control by what I'm seeing, and it's all about suppressing a certain group's viewpoint. You know, the left, they're all for diversity. You know, that's what they talk about, diversity. Right. But they're not for diversity in thought, though.
No,
that's right.
You know,
not in practice.
Yeah, they want everybody have the same thoughts, and that's the dangerous part for me. And I think that's why I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna vote for Trump. You know, when I see Trump, I was like, my first reaction is like, the main reason I want to vote for him because I know he's going to go up there and do what he needs to do, and hopefully he'll try to change this that you're seeing in social media now. You know, you're actually starting to see it in Rumble. You're starting to see it in other places because they have to comply because of other countries. They're having pushback from other countries like Brazil and also in Europe. Even Elon Musk is having issues with Twitter and them trying to go after him. I mean, they arrested the guy that created Telegram in France, and they're prosecuting him. So if I was him, I wouldn't go to France because, you know, fear of getting arrested. And I think when you see stuff like that happening in Europe, at some point or another, it always comes here. And that's concerning too, because, you know, you're starting to see it a little bit here. It's not full bore like you see in Europe or Canada or in Brazil. But I think one more election, and if you put Kamala Harris in there, it's going to go in overdrive because she's going to give them free reign to decide, and free reign to actually the three-letter agencies to decide what's can go on the internet and what can't.
So what you're saying is some of the social media platforms that we think of as being less censored, more freedom friendly, are now, due to pressure from outside countries, doing more of the censorship.
They're doing a little bit more of it. It's because they want to get that revenue from that particular area, and so they have to comply a bit in order to make sure that they actually stay there. Right now, Brazil has yeah, it is. Yeah. But right now, Brazil has completely taken Rumble off. You can't even, they don't see Rumble at all anymore there.
I knew that was the case with X. I wasn't aware that Rumble was removed as well.
Yeah, Rumble was removed, and X is too. Right now, Elon Musk is, you know, in I guess a lawsuit with them, trying to get his equipment back when it comes to I think Starlink and some of the equipment that was there. He's trying to get that back, and he's also trying to get them to open their venue back up for X. But you have to wait.
Yeah, right now, apparently, if you're running a VPN, you get caught running a VPN, it's like a 10 years in prison.
In Brazil?
Yeah. In Brazil.
Wow.
In Brazil, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you know, George Washington said, if freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led like sheep to the slaughter. Look, that's what's at stake here. There's only one reason that they want to control a narrative, and they don't want ideas to compete. And that reason doesn't have anything good in it for any of the American people.
Right.
You know, there should be an open marketplace of ideas, and what we're seeing is like I commented on one of your videos, like it was so good on the situation in Butler, and I saw the views and I was like, how can this be? It's been up 3 hours, and it's like, I know exactly how it can be. That YouTube isn't sharing it with anyone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have the bell turned on for my own channel, and I don't get notifications at least 60% of the time.
Yeah.
And it's turned on.
The other thing I've seen is, because I do the same thing and I monitor that. So I won't get any notification once it's posted. I'll get it like a day, 18, 24 hours later. You know, after it's already kind of went in. If you folks don't understand, like, videos have a life cycle, and it's like a 12 to 24 hour life cycle. And I don't know how it all works. I just know I can see how it works in the analytics. So there's two things. So if you're missing that 12 to 24 hour life cycle of that thing, it gets kind of put on the shelf, and the video's all but dead. And that was one thing that I noticed. We're talking about the algorithm. That's where I kind of got lucky with, you know, once that the Trump assassination thing happened, I can tell they weren't censoring that. I had like 2 videos that got over 1 million views, like within a couple of days. Yeah. And then like the next video that I posted, same topic, like it's kind of the same formula, 30,000 views. And then the next one was like 5,000 views. And the interest in it was still high. It's just, you know, what they were doing. Like, oh, hey, this is helping Trump. We could tell this is not good. Like, we gotta put the kibosh on this real quick.
You know, I think not only are they censoring a certain view, but Base comment brings a thought to the forefront of my brain. His comment says, I've lost a lot of faith in, in society these last few years since COVID, I was proven wrong with the hurricane. People have stepped up and helped each other, and it didn't matter who you were voting for. Now, those kinds of things are getting censored too. And I think they want to keep us divided. They want to keep us fighting each other so that we're not paying attention to what is actually going on. We're so absorbed in hating each other that they can be doing all kinds of things behind the scenes, grabbing power, doing whatever they want to do. But we're so absorbed in staying divided that they intentionally, I think, censor those kinds of things. You don't see all the good in humanity that not only happens around, a situation like this, but in everyday life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't want people coming together.
No.
No. Nothing gets
strength in numbers.
They don't want discussions in the open marketplace of ideas because they're afraid of losing, and they definitely don't want people coming together. They want division.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's an old tactic, divide and conquer. It's simple,
sure, but
it's easy,
I just don't know that ever before has the good in humanity been so censored.
I don't think that they've ever had the ability to do so, and that's what Google, especially Google, YouTube, Alphabet, whatever you want to call them, like the power that they have to create narratives is insane. And that's what we're up against. And I don't have a good answer. I have some thoughts on it, what I think should take place, but it's a challenge. There's no doubt about it.
Well, example of that is after the attempted assassination of Trump, the first one in Butler. What did Google do about 2 or 3 days later? If you look up the assassination, they'll bring up the assassination of JFK, of MLK, and also RFK. And I was like, what? And then once Kamala Harris started doing her rallies, if you look up Trump rally, Kamala Harris rallies will come up. So that's how they're trying to change the narrative in order to control exactly what you can see and what you don't see.
Mm-hmm.
This was going on during COVID. I remember I wrote up an article for a blog. It actually got like 15,000 reads, which was like, wow, it's the first thing I'd written since college, but it was on ivermectin. And when I would go, if I would use Google and I wouldn't go to like NCBI or to primary sources, and I would just use Google, there was only 2 pieces of information Google would give me. They would tell me the lawyer's statement about ivermectin that they can't, and then they would tell me that it was for animals.
Right.
But that was it. And you had to go to the primary sources to read any of the studies or, the random controlled trials that were done. So they're doing this on very specific topics. And there are still millions of Americans who think it's for horses.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even though the FDA and the CDC have publicly come out and apologized, so it's effective.
And that wasn't a headline. And they're actually prescribing ivermectin for like what they call long COVID and all these other things. I mean, ivermectin is one of the safest, most effective drugs ever made. And it's crazy that the way that they've gotten away with demonizing it and the things that they've done. And just speaking of that, one of the things that drove me nuts, I mean, literally within the first couple of days of COVID was, when the mask mandates started coming out, just the initial push for that. And I was like, this is so stupid. I understand what N95 masks are capable of, and I also understand how small viruses actually are, and they do nothing for a virus. You might as well be building a picket fence to keep out rats. I mean, that's how effective. And so what I did was during that initial, like literally, I think it was like March 15th, things kind of started going
very, very early.
Well, March 15th, things were going down, and
March
like
13th is kind of that.
Yeah, and then like I probably posted this around the 20th. I looked up 2 different studies by 2 different universities, and I don't remember which ones they were, and I posted them, and they were talking about double-blind studies that they said, hey, when it comes to bacteria and or viruses, masks are completely effective. These were completely 2 different independent studies. I posted those on Facebook. Like a month later, I got a notification from Facebook saying that those were taken down because of misinformation. And then
the studies disappeared too.
And then I was just going to be like, F it, I'm going to repost those things. So I went and tried to find those two studies again, couldn't find them. They'd been erased from the internet. It was, and that's what they're dealing with.
It's absolutely crazy.
It's kind of like what they did to the shooters for that went after Trump. They went on their social medias and deleted everything about him.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why? Why
Yeah.
shouldn't the American people be able to look and see things about him? We should.
Yep. They do that to hide any kind of involvement or connection to someone else. Maybe.
Well, they there's a pattern where if you have anyone that's a high profile crime, usually a mass shooting or whatever it is, something like this, is if they are somehow easily associated with the left, that is when they get taken down. If they have right-leaning tendencies or whatever else, and oftentimes they'll tell you that this leftist, because they've already removed the evidence, is actually a right winger. So that they try that game. And on top of that, if they do lean right, if they're Republican or whatever else, you immediately hear that. And they're going to post all of their social media, comments, screenshots, whatever it is, that is going to be all over the place. We saw the same thing take place with the Las Vegas shooting. Suddenly this guy didn't exist. And we see that time and time again. And I really believe, I think that guy is somebody that is severely anti-2A, a Democrat, and wanted to do something extremely dramatic to make sure that gun control was put in place. And I still believe that, because what he did makes no sense. The amount of guns he had makes no sense. Nothing of that makes sense. That is it's
a showboat.
It is 100% a political theater. That's what that was meant to be. And unfortunately, people lost their lives in that.
I want to get your opinion on I've had a thought about the mass shootings and stuff, and the way it's reported. And whenever I see it reported, every time, first thing they do is the color of the skin of the person.
Yep.
Their beliefs, and when it comes to either religion or political beliefs. Yep. And then the next thing is what kind of gun they have. Sure. I'd rather them not report on what kind of gun they use. And the reason is because copycats, Sure. Not only that, I think the reason the media does that is because they want to create a boogeyman with the AR, with Sure. an AR and AK. And that's the reason they do it. And as soon as they hear it's one of those two weapons, they're all over that.
Well, there is a pattern that you're talking about right there. The other side of that coin that we regularly see is if the skin color is not immediately identified, and or the weapon is not immediately identified, that is going to be a minority, and they didn't use an AR-15.
Yes.
And this is I do think that it is a strategic thing where they've turned the AR-15 into something that it's not. If you are somebody that knows nothing about firearms, which most Democrats don't. And I've heard even like the View, the ladies on the View talk about how like if you shoot a deer with an AR-15, it just obliterates it. So they've turned the AR-15 into this like weapon of mass destruction. It's a 22 caliber rifle is what it is. It's very like it's not even the best choice for a lot of things. But the point is so if you are somebody that wants to commit a horrific crime, the first thing you're going to go after is this now iconic crazy weapon that is fully semi-automatic.
They've sensationalized all over the news.
100%. That is the weapon to go to, and of course they know that that's not unintentional, and so they know that, like you talked about, Matt, copycats, like it's a perfect recipe because now they're going to be able to push the legislation they want. They can incite violence with a specific weapon. That's essentially what they're doing.
There's like one side that is in control of the government. All right. Why is our government want to censor just conservatives? Why does our government want to take firearms away? I mean, I see these things as related in the sense that government is way on the far left. They want to take every right they can take. They want 15-minute cities, not too much movement. And when you are, you're carrying your phone so they can listen and track every step that you take. I don't want to live in that kind of a world. I mean, I feel like this is right out of George Orwell's 1984, what's happening, because essentially the narrative is being controlled by the far left. Like, whoever thought Dick Cheney would be openly voting for Kamala? Doesn't anyone on the left think there's a problem there?
I mean, nobody in the right even, like, it just tells you are now the party of warmongers. Like, even the people on the right have been smart enough to, like, look, this guy's a dirtbag. All he wants to do is get rich off of killing people, off of wars. And yeah, that's the side that is now going with the Democrats. And it's absolutely insane. And the people on the left that can't see the irony, well, you're just a silly son of a gun. I mean, I don't know what else to say with that. You know, it's dumb. And now you're happy. I mean, think of how crazy that is. The left is happy to say we're being endorsed by Dick freaking Cheney.
Right.
Like you don't see, that was the boogeyman back in the early 2000s. That was the guy.
Darth Vader, man, didn't they? They called him Darth Vader.
100%. I called him Darth Vader. You know, I've always been conservative, libertarian, whatever you want to say, but that is a guy that I've always hated. Like, he's a dirtbag. He's a guy that is getting rich, whether you're talking about Halliburton, you know, everything that he did in Iraq and Afghanistan, the way that we, the people in the military, was manipulated to essentially enrich so many people. That was the only, it's really, when you look back at what's going on, that's the only thing that we got out of Afghanistan and Iraq. Like, and they were willing to sell out the children of other Americans so that they could get rich. They were willing to sacrifice your kids, our friends, our family members, so that they could get rich, and then go around and say, hey, you know what, this was really a noble effort. No, it wasn't. It was a waste of life, treasure. And now you want that guy's endorsement. You're a moron.
I want to say thank you for your service. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. I totally agree. You know, we've never been closer to World War III. I think we're in a worse position now than we were in the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I'll tell you why. All the dumbest kids in the class are running things, and they're pretty much provoking or trying to provoke. I'm astounded that Putin has let them do all the things, like sinking one of his brand new, cruisers equal to a destroyer, or just a little bigger, in the Black Sea, and, the bridge, and just the pipeline, and all. I mean, there's a ton of stuff, and he's been, sort of restrained, it seems to me. Like maybe he's an adult in the room who doesn't want to see things devolve into a nuclear war. And I feel like our side doesn't want that either, but the things they're doing are leading us that direction.
Not only are they leading us toward a nuclear war and possibly a World War III, they're leading us to the demise of America in ways that I don't think most people realize. When you see, even if we don't go into any sort of kinetic war with these countries, what we are is an economic war, and they're getting more and more. They're banding together and they're creating a coalition that will, at a minimum, if they don't completely defeat us, they're going to cost us billions of dollars, trillions of dollars, in ways that I don't think people realize. What China is doing, what Russia is doing with BRICS. A lot of people are tired. A lot of countries are tired and hate America because of the way that we have kind of pushed our way around the world economically, whether it's through sanctions that don't make a lot of sense, that are unjustified, that are violating the sovereignty of these countries in ways that we would never accept. It's absolutely crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is something that I think Trump is missing in his campaign, really going after Kamala Harris about her being a warmonger and accepting Dick Cheney's endorsement, and also being part of one of the biggest warmongers ever in America, and that's Joe Biden. And I think he needs to start going after him, because I think if she gets elected, they're going to do a draft. I think, and they're going to get us more involved in Ukraine. They're going to get us more involved in the Middle East.
Right.
And if something happens with China and Taiwan, they're going to get us involved in that too. And they're going to have to start a draft, because their numbers when it comes to enrolling people or people joining the military is really low.
It's yeah.
And so
they're way down.
yeah, I mean, they're going to have to do something in order to get the people they need in there to actually fight these wars. And I think that's partly also part of the calculus of bringing these mostly young men across the border as well. And that scares the hell out of me too, because, you know, these people, majority of them, they don't have reverence for the American dream like we do.
There's no loyalty.
Yes, their morals and their morals are going to be different than ours, especially when it comes to wartime.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows what they're going to do.
Taking an unconstitutional order like that, is that what you're talking about?
Yes,
That's what I'm thinking too. Yeah.
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 Anything like that.
They're not loyal to the American people, so they don't hold us in the same reverence that
Right.
our own citizens would, and so they're more than willing to do whatever they're told.
You know, Rome
they'll be given citizenship or offered citizenship if they enlist and things like that. There's going to be a lot more goodies given.
Citizenship doesn't create patriotism, though.
No, it doesn't. It absolutely doesn't.
No.
But the point is they want people in here that are willing to do things most Americans wouldn't.
Right.
And then on top of that, they're going to dangle out carrots that are going to get them to go the way that they want. I don't know how effective that'll ultimately be. I think they are probably. I don't disagree that that's a strategy, but I do think that they are overestimating people's willingness from other countries to go to war. I think they're going to see whether they're going to see as many draft dodgers if they, start a draft that are undocumented as they ever would.
I guess that's one way to get back over the border.
They're like, yeah, you know what? I'm going back to El Salvador.
I hear these congressmen, a couple of different congressmen. I think Jamie Raskin and Dick Durbin are talking about military service for citizenship, and it's like, have you never read a history book? Rome fell because they diluted citizenship by offering it for military in exchange for military service. Yeah. That ends badly historically. Can give you example after example. Every time it's tried seriously, it ends up bad for the people, because like we've all said, they're more likely to take an unconstitutional order, for example, against the American people. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a national security threat to do that sort of thing. And it's amazing to me how many Congress people are willing to get behind it. And I know the numbers for recruiting are low, but I think the reason is that real men don't want to hear any woke nonsense. They don't want woke. They don't want, homosexual. They don't want that culture. Their warriors are there to go to war.
Well, look, they've been diluting the military for a long time. It's honestly I got out in 2011, and because of some of the things that Obama was doing, was the main driver for that. Just like we're talking about, and they're not even nearly as bad. It wasn't nearly as bad then as it is now. But now they're talking, now you have it to where we have women in the infantry, women in special operations, all these things. And we've seen the trend. We saw it even back then. That was one of the things that was concerning me, but even back in like 2010, 2011, where they were lowering standards in preparation. We all knew what was going on. Like, hey, you know what? They're going to start allowing women to come into special operations. They're going to start allowing women come into the infantry and things like that. And that causes real problems. Not because that there isn't, very capable women out there. But when you're lowering the standards, you're lowering it across the board. So even the men that shouldn't be there are now there. And on top of that, now we have women. Now, I don't know how many of you out there know what like a special operations in A team is, right? An ODA. So you have 12 guys on a Green Beret SF ODA, Operation Detachment Alpha. So we're out there, 12 guys. You go to a remote location and you're out there. And it's just those 12 guys. And then you're also training indigenous folks around there. Now you take 12 of those guys, you take a few of them out, and you put 2 females in what we call a team house. And so we have 10 guys, 2 females. Folks, the amount of problems that will cause, just ask my wife, ask her if she would be happy if I'm out in the middle of Iraq and it's just us 10 guys and 2 chicks.
Nope.
Like,
You can come on home now.
It's not good. It's not
Right.
good. Never mind the fact that I 100% know, and this is not a knock on females. If the standards had stayed where they are, there would be almost 0 women capable of getting into special operations. If they kept selection and the entire pipeline for training the way that it was, it's just not possible. Look, women are awesome. They're amazing. They do some great things. There are things that women can do that men absolutely cannot, and vice versa.
I'm way better at you than some things.
You are 100%
and you're way better than me at some things.
You are so much better.
There's a lot of things that I
cooking, cleaning.
No, that's the truth though. What you're saying is true. And it's like they want to completely pretend like differences between the sexes don't exist.
Right.
Well, that's part of feminism.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the physiological differences, and there's the difference. Like, women are born to be nurturers. We're not meant to be warriors.
Mentality.
There's a difference there.
Yeah.
And there's also a real problem too. Like, if there's things that when you're in the middle of a gunfight, and it is a natural tendency of men to want to take care of women, right? So suddenly, like, we know that, hey, if somebody gets injured, and if you don't, this is how it works. Somebody gets injured in the middle of a gunfight, you do not stop and treat them. You continue to fight. You have to suppress the threat. They render self-aid if they can. And this is how we keep other people from getting killed. And I can tell you right now, if there is a female on the battlefield, suddenly your attention is going to be more diverted than if it was Jack over there. That's like, hey, Jack, take care of yourself, buddy. It's just different. It's different, and it's a bad recipe. And there's a reason why for millennia we have not had women on the battlefield in an active role like that. And it's just, it's common sense.
Yeah. What do you think about that draft bill trying to draft girls into the military?
Well, I think if we're going to I think there's a role for women in the military. And I think there's some, I do think that if we're going to draft men, we need to draft women too. And the reason for that is because, number one, I think the draft generally is immoral. The last thing that you want on in a military, if you want to destroy a military, put a bunch of people in there that don't want to be there. But if you're going to do that for women, if you're going to do that for men, you got to do it for women too.
And what a quicker way to change hearts and minds.
That's my point. Is like, hey, the way that I see the military is we can do a lot more with, number one, pay them a little better, make it a better career field, do some things where it's a little bit more if you want to make something better, the answer isn't to lower standards. It's to increase standards and to treat them correctly, right? And this is like with government efficiency. If you want, if the more people that you have in a bureaucracy or the military and all the stuff that goes into that, all you do is make it more complicated. It makes it harder to do things effectively and efficiently. If you want the least effective, most expensive solution, go with the government solution. The same things with the military. The military is probably a little more efficiently ran than most of the government, but it still it sucks. Even like trying to get medical things done while you're in the military, at least when I was in the military, like you would put stuff off for deployments. like, hey, I need to get this surgery done or this thing done, but you know, we got a deployment coming up. And like, it was just always hard to do anything. You know, if there's a mistake in your pay, it takes months to get remedied. You know, there's people that I know that went without pay for months and months. And finally they do get back pay, but like there's like
in the meantime, they've lost their house because they had no way to pay a mortgage,
or their
and,
credit
you
is
know.
absolutely screwed. You know, it's just you know, if you had more people, if you incentivize competence, I mean, it's pretty common sense that if you incentivize competence and make it and increase the standards, you're going to be able to do a lot more with a lot less.
You know, and back to women versus men, and this is something I've thought of quite frequently. I've heard other people express this thought as well, as, you know, what we see as modern feminism, and I guess my view of modern feminism has really done women and family a disservice, because now women feel like, if I'm not working outside the home, if I'm not bringing home a paycheck, then I'm of no value.
Yeah.
So you feel the pressure to fill that role outside of your house, but you still have all the roles that were historically a woman's role inside the house and inside the family. And now you're just scattered all over the place.
Well, they've demonized women's traditional roles,
Right.
which is a real shame, because
the traditional family.
It's such, it was honestly, that's one of the things that made America so great. You can't have great men without great women. And
raising them.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, now we don't have kids being raised by their mothers or fathers for that matter. You know,
Yeah.
they demonized marriage, you know, that they've incentivized to, you know, a split up family, or a mother and father that never get married. And it's just damaging kids and damaging our nation at a level I don't think people quite understand.
Now, of course, you know, the fight for women's rights, the right to vote, equal rights, and those things
We really screwed up.
was very valuable. And that part of feminism was great.
Yeah.
But, you know, the rest of it, that women are equal to men in other capacities of life, it was never meant to be that way.
Just like men aren't
women
equal
have a
to
separate
women.
role, and men have a separate role, and we're not meant to do the same things.
Yeah, it's that belief that really started the trans movement that you're seeing now with, you know, a deity, you could switch sex. Yeah.
Yeah.
And no, you can't. You know, just no. Men don't need to be, you know, performing in sports with women. You know, it's not going to work out for the women. You know, because the women's never going to win in first place in a weightlifting contest or any other kind of contest. And whoever has the male on their team, whether it be basketball, volleyball, whatever team sports it is, that team is going to do better than a team with all female.
Yeah.
And the reason is they have someone on there that's so much faster and quicker than them.
Yeah. And what an injustice to women and young girls. I mean, we're the feminist in that fight. Like, they should be
women's sport.
Yeah, you are really screwing over these young girls and these women. Get out of the way.
You know what the most
embarrassing? Yeah, if you look at like the Olympic records in the division between men and women in run time or whatever it is, any major physical activity,
the world record in men versus the world record in women,
it is leagues apart. It is leagues apart.
It's called testosterone.
Yeah. It's testosterone, it's physiology. Like men's bodies are just built different. You know, so you know, it's all those things.
Yep.
We just saw it on display at the Olympics, where they let the one girl get her orbital socket broken by, you know, I mean, so there it is.
Yeah,
that's craziness on display. I got the last Olympics, by the way, from the opening ceremony all the way through the games. I couldn't be more disgusted. I remember watching the Miracle in Lake Placid with both of my parents live, and the Olympics doesn't feel like that anymore.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, no, I avoided the Olympics completely this time. I think most people did. I think you know, they were talking about that, you know, Olympic viewership was down some drastic amount. It was the lowest it ever been, and it's only going to get lower. It's like the freaking Oscars. Nobody watches that garbage anymore, and if you do, well, you know, You
We
need
know
to,
what side you're on.
you need to find some
Right.
better. I don't care what side you're on. You need to find better things to watch. I mean, it's just garbage in.
Well, I think the issue of them losing viewership actually has to do with a lot of people are streaming now, and those particular venues aren't going on streaming platforms and showing their show, whether it be the Oscars or the Olympics.
Yeah.
Not that I would watch it anyway, but either way, not only that, people have a lot of options to
Right.
watch other stuff that they're more interested in. A perfect example is your channel and our channel. People might be more interested in watching us than watching, some guy from Blue Man Group going up on stage at the Olympics and act like an idiot.
Or
I don't know.
even if it is a specific event, like an Olympic event or a presidential debate, they may choose to watch it through one of your guys' channels and get that live feedback because they enjoy that opinion along with viewing it. You know, they're not going to go to ABC and watch it and get some kind of jacked up opinion.
Nobody wants to hear David Muir talk about how well Kamala did at the debate.
They want to hear Gary fact check everything.
No, you're absolutely right, though. I mean, people pick people that they like to hear the news from. And that's a new phenomenon because they've controlled the airwaves up until, very recently. But you're right on point, Gary. I mean, nobody wants to listen to David Muir. No, I don't want to hear anything from that guy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or The View. Joy Behar.
or Hillary Clinton.
I go to Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg for all my life advice. What a loser. Exactly.
Tell us how you really feel, Gary.
Yeah. So, I do. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. One of the things that I have thought aloud, and I go back and forth on it, when we see YouTube and things like that, we're talking about equality, right? Not equity, but equality, and that is something that is there's not a fair playing field,
No.
and I don't know what the answer is without getting into a constitutional overstep. But I do see more and more things like YouTube and Facebook, and this is the social square where I do think some regulations would be, I'd be, and you guys tell me your thoughts and tell me I'm wrong, because I'm sure the comment people will, and I welcome them. Look, I know we don't want the government telling corporations what to do when it comes to certain things, but at the same time, we already do. Like, there's already so many different regulations that the government requires for equity and quality and all these other things. And I think one of the things, that seems like a right answer to me, is making sure that there is equal. Like, you shouldn't have a corporate algorithm that only lets one voice be heard or one side of an argument be heard.
And you're saying there should be some government oversight or rules that require said private corporation, private business,
like I said,
to allow both sides.
Yeah. Again, I think we've gone past just a corporate entity in the same way. One of the things I've heard people talk about that does kind of appeal to me, but also makes me feel a little icky at the same time, is governing social media much like we do utilities, right? You can't, a utility company, even though they're a private company, can't say, oh, we're going to give the white neighborhood over here or the Democrats over here power, but we're not going to allow the power to go over here to certain people over here because we don't like them, or we disagree with their political stance or whatever it is. So what's your guys' thought on that?
I think you got to get rid of the corporate welfare state. A lot of these companies like Google, Facebook, even Twitter, they have been propped up with our tax dollars. And they also have portals allowing, well, not Twitter anymore, but the rest of them have portals where they allow government officials to go in there, the three-letter agencies, and take down or highlight tweets, or at the time before Elon Musk was in there, but Yeah. Also, Facebook and YouTube, videos and whatever else, highlight those particular items and have them taken down. I think you got to take government away from the corporate, and corporate away from government, and because really it's fascism when you look at it.
Yeah.
And if you don't, I think you got to get someone in there to actually do that. And once you do that, I think the market will be open for everybody.
Right.
But as long as government is involved in it, and you have this corporate, I guess it's corporate joining with government.
It's government management of a corporation, essentially.
Yes. Yeah.
I think what you're trying to say is because they're receiving funds from the government, then the government is having some control over what is being done.
Yeah.
If you remove that funding, it allows the company to feel more free to serve other viewpoints.
Yes, due to that, them getting that fund for that from the government, they're obligated to give that government whatever they want.
Right.
And they can't turn it down. And the banks do it. You also see a lot of other corporations doing it. BlackRock. I could keep on naming them.
Sure.
And if you want to stop that, then you have to stop the corporate welfare state. But Democrats and some Republicans, actually, I'd say majority of Republicans, there's like 20%, I'd say, are against it. But generally, the Uniparty's all for it, and they want to have control over it because they want control over the information airways. That's the reason the media is screwed up now. Because of the same situation. They're controlled by the powers that be, the Uniparty. They dictate what they're going to say. I mean, it's not a coincidence. Every channel you go onto when they talk about Donald Trump, he's a threat to democracy. You hear it all the time. And it's, and they send these, their narratives out in order to control thought. And I think the only way you're going to actually fix that is take government out of corporations and take corporations out of government.
Yeah. One of the things they constantly hold over social media's head, the way that they're able to manipulate them and almost blackmail them to some extent, is Section 230 is what protects them from legal liability. And it's not so much even that they're getting necessarily funding directly from the government, but it's the protections that the government is affording them if they play ball, essentially. Right. And at least that's how the left, when Biden is in office, and now they're trying to, and you have the different agencies out there that are trying to manipulate what's going on with the COVID narrative. That's what was what they were being manipulated with. And throw up that comment real quick. A.M. Atkinson, it's not a public square if you don't let the public speak. And I agree with you, Matt, and technically it's not a public square. And what I would like to see, what we would all like to see, is a free market solution to this. And that is, hey, you know what, if Americans don't like what's going on, they go somewhere else. But the problem is there is nowhere else to go. Sure, we can say that YouTube is not a monopoly since there's Rumble, but Rumble's nowhere near the size of that, or Facebook. There's no real alternative given how powerful they actually are. That's
the other side of that is I think there's so many people that don't realize exactly what's being censored and what's being shown and not shown. So they don't know that, oh, well, hey, you know what? Maybe I need to go somewhere else to see the other side.
These platforms like YouTube and Facebook, they want to create an echo chamber where you only hear one side of it and suppress the other side. And they are private companies, so there's very little that should be done to them on that front. But I think we need on the front of what government should do. I don't think government should do a whole lot in that regard, except for stop trying to control it. Allow the freedom of ideas to go through that company as well. If that company doesn't want to have conservatives on there, that's fine. But as long as they're not taking money from the government, that's when they start taking good money from government. That's why I'm like this. Their utility at that point.
Yeah,
that's how I'm looking at it.
I was thinking the same thing you were with the free market forces. And to me, think about the viewership at CNN and MSNBC, how far down it is. And then Rachel Maddow makes $30 million a year. And ask yourself, how are they paying that? You know how they're paying it? The major news networks have private donors that give them the money to keep an operation. And these private donors may be getting the money from the government and giving it to them. It doesn't matter. For all purposes, the billionaire elite class and the government are the same entity because they have the same interests. And when interests align, you don't need to necessarily make a compact.
right.
So
You don't have to coordinate.
I was going to say MSNBC is a little interesting because it's part of NBC. It's also part of Paramount and so on and so forth. They're all connected together. I mean, if you look at the United States, there's only 5 media companies altogether, and you have Warner Brothers, which is owned by the same people that own Discovery, so on and so forth,
right?
And HBO. And the reason they do that is they've turned themselves into monopolies. Like if you look at 25 years ago, there's over 50 media companies. Now there's only 5. And the reason they have done that, that's the reason they're able to pay someone like Rachel Maddow $30 million, because it's not actual MSNBC paying them; it's the actual media company itself paying her. Mm-hmm. And they're taking revenue from everywhere to actually be able to pay that.
Right. And it's making an uneven playing field, and it's allowing the government to always put forward a narrative. And as we've seen, anybody who's seen the news, they all say the same phrases. From Phoenix to New York City, they parrot the same phrases over and over. It like somebody wrote the script for them because somebody did write the script.
Yeah.
And I don't know how the free market can solve that unless the government and that interest, the big money interest seems to believe in everything that we loathe.
Yeah.
Well, another example of that is also Disney. They own FX, they own Fox, they own Fox News, they own ABC. And you're like this, you're like, what?
Right.
You're looking at it. I'm like this. How's anything? How are you going to? How is ABC so far left, and then Fox News so far right? Which it's not far right. It's center.
It's not, no.
It's center.
The problem is that we have so much of the country that is so far left that when you start hearing fairly objective information, it sounds crazy right wing. Just like when CNN started trying to become a little bit more objective and kind of report both sides, the left went nuts. They're like, oh god, they're this far right, they're worse than Fox now. Like, no, they just started reporting objectively, and now that sounds like batshit crazy right wing propaganda. No, it's just the truth.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's the problem with the Overton window. The further you go left, the crazier the center sounds.
Yeah, no, that's the truth.
Well, and going back to what you were talking about earlier, Matt, you were talking about I think Romeo, you were talking about the government is so far left, and that's the problem too, is that we have conservatives, Republicans, libertarians. We're kind of a victim of our own proclivities. Like, we want to go out and do our own thing. We want to stay away from government, whereas you have these leftists that understand, and again, it's a strategy that's been going on for over 50 years, where you have the entire spectrum of government is just completely occupied by the strongest leftists out there, the most crazy radical leftists out there. They are running almost every facet of our government, from the bureaucracy, and then we get into academia, local school. You know, at first it was just colleges. You'd have some crazy leftist professors that are spouting some socialist, communist ideas, but now that has trickled down to even, you know, local preschools, elementary schools, you know, high school, and they own everything. They've occupied all these government spaces, and they're monolithic. They're on point. They're on message, and they're much smarter than, I won't say they're smarter than us. They are more idealistic than the right, because the right, and again, I'm putting a lot of people on the right, just if you're not far left, if you're centrist and you just want to do your own thing, you know, we want to go out there and create our own businesses. We want to work for, you know, something that's not a government. We want to go do all these things, and our life and our quality of life is more important to us than pushing the ideology. And that is it's ideology before everything else. It's party before country. That is how they own, that's how they operate. That's how their brain works. And they're executing really well. And we're way behind. I'm not sure that we can overtake them.
And I think even when it comes to local schools becoming so woke, a big portion of that is the tolerance of the parents.
100%.
The parents are tolerating it. They're not doing anything about it. They're waiting for someone else to do something about it. Or it goes back to the disintegration of the family unit. The parents are not involved, or so busy both working their own 9 to 5 that they're not able to be involved in that child's life at the same level that they used to would have been.
Or if they show up to a school board meeting, now they're on the FBI terror watch list.
Yeah, or they're shamed for even speaking out.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know the answer for that.
Yeah.
Great. Now I'm depressed.
Well, I've been married for 15 years, and I got 3 kids, and my wife takes care of the kids while I'm gone, and then I get home and I help with school work and stuff like that as much as possible. Yeah. And since we've been together, she's never worked. And I was like, that's how I was raised. That's how my kids are going to be raised. I want to have a parent at home at all times in order to help them if they need help.
Yeah.
You know, and it's harder on me. You know, when I was in the oil field, it was a little bit easier. but now I do odd end jobs, and I do do other jobs like that in order to keep ends meet and keep the roof over her head and everything. But it was but it's with Biden in there, it's making it harder for people out there to make a living because of inflation and stuff like that. And of course, you know, Trump's talking about that, but even Trump doesn't even understand where people are coming from because, you know, he's a billionaire. Yeah, but I think he's someone that actually is willing to do something about it to fix it.
Right? Yeah, I think the difference between Trump and the other politicians, especially the politicians on the Democrat side, is that Trump genuinely loves America. He's not going to get everything right. He's not the most moral person. He's not, you know, he's got a ton of faults, but his faults don't supersede the fact that he actually loves America. And he takes, and what I will say is that he connects, you know, look, Trump is ego driven, but his ego is tightly connected with the success of this country.
Right.
When he's president.
Yep.
He wants to see it, and I'm fine with that. Yeah. Like, you know, if the
because
CEO,
the result benefits us
100%. If the CEO of the company that I work for is just an ego-driven maniac, and part of that is he wants to make sure that, you know, the company is thriving, doing well, his people are paid well, that's fine. You can sit there and attack him at a personal level all that you want, and you're probably right every single time, but how effective he is, you can't take away from that. And that's exactly what I think, you know, we're dealing with Trump. Like, I'd rather him speak poorly and be effective than be the heck of a statesman and be able to speak so well in front of crowds while he's selling out the American people, because that's what we're seeing.
Neville Chamberlain.
Yeah. sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
No, the other thing I value about Trump is he runs the country like a business. He doesn't run the country based on emotion or feeling or ideology or what are other countries around the world going to think about us? Screw that. Let's run this as a country because that's what benefits the American people.
Absolutely. I think people focus on too much of what he says and not enough of what he does.
Exactly.
I think his actions mean more to me than actual what he says, because he's just like everybody else. Majority of the time, you're full of crap. Especially what you're saying. It's later on when you see what he does, when you see what that person does, that's who they are.
Right. It's not what you say, it's what you do.
Yeah, and Trump, unlike a lot of other politicians, he speaks off the cuff. He doesn't sit there, and he doesn't have a message that is, dictated to him prior to, like we see with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Like if they're not reading off a teleprompter, they fall apart. He doesn't. So he's going to say some things that are inaccurate, that are wrong, that sound like a good idea until you really flesh them out and think about them. He's not very disciplined with his speech. And like you said, that's fine. But at the end of the day, like, when he's talking about at the beginning of this, you know what, we're going to make Mexico pay for the wall and all that stuff. Well, first of all, he started putting some tariff. He started getting some money from Mexico. We may have not gotten. I don't care where we get the money from. I want us to build a freaking wall so our borders are secure. I don't care if he falls through on that promise. I do care if he falls through on the promise of not building the wall. That is something that he should be held to account for. Now, with that being said, he's still the president. He can't just do an executive order and push funds over to a wall. He needs some help from Congress. There's no doubt about it. So his hand, is just like every president to some extent, to a large extent, as so engineered by our founders, their hands are tied. But that is his message, and that's what he wants to get done. And that aligns with the rest of America. We want to be able to control who comes in this country. And anybody that doesn't, you're an absolute idiot. And that's the thing, is most of these, I really do believe, that most of the corporations in America, most of the politicians in America are quite frankly dedicated to the destruction or the downfall of the United States. And that is why you see them investing so hard into China. Number one, they align with them ideologically. And then on top of that, they think that's where the money's going. They're placing their bets on China. I don't think they know what they're getting into. I think it's a fool's errand, because next thing you know, China does run things, and they're like, you're no longer the CEO of your company. We are. I think that's going to be eye-opening for people. But I do think that is part of the strategy, is that we have a lot of politicians that hate America on a principle. And a lot of Americans that hate America on a principle, because they've been sold the idea that America is fundamentally evil, and we're not. And, that's kind of where we're at.
And when you take that attitude with the censorship and the rest, you might be at the dinner table this week, but you're going to be on the menu soon.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. When I look at Trump, my dad, we have conversations like this quite a bit about Trump. He likes Trump, but he's a hardcore libertarian, and his reaction's like, I like Trump because he doesn't have much of an ideology. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like this. Look, he wants to do what's best for the country and what's best for people. And his ideology does not get away with that.
Yeah.
And I was like this. Yeah, I agree with that. Because, if you were honest about his ideology and what he really believes, I would say he would actually be more, he's definitely in the middle. He's not
100%.
He's not far right. These people are acting like he's far right. Like they try to compare him to Hitler. And I look at him and I was like this, he's right in the middle. He's someone that I would consider be the same as, if I had to go with, I'd say he's a lot like Reagan.
Right.
I definitely don't think he looks at anything through a political lens.
No.
He looks at everything. Everything's on the menu. And it's like, okay, this is a good idea. This is a good idea. This makes sense. This makes sense. And that's one of the problems. And that's one of the problems that we've had with let's face it. I think most of the Republican politicians, mainstream Republican, they hate him. They hate him, and I don't think we like guys like Lindsey Graham. He would much rather see Kamala Harris. When we see all these folks, because they know how to manipulate or how to work the system when those types of people are involved. With Trump, they don't know what to do with them. They can't control them, and then they're going to go out. He's going to go out and give Lindsey Graham's telephone number out on out in public when he's on TV, and he has no problem just excoriating these people in public, and I think it's awesome. I love it. We need to know what's going on behind closed doors, and we don't. And I've said for a long time, it's WWE wrestling. They're out there pretending to fight one another, and when the cameras are shut off, they're over there high-fiving one another. I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. This is great. We're best
It kind of
buds.
goes back to my earlier comment about Trump looking at this as a business. I see him looking at everything as, previously in his business life, he looks at what's the best deal I can make for my company with the most benefits to my company. And now he's looking at that from a country standpoint. What's the best deal, the pieces and parts I can put together that's going to get the most benefits for my country?
Yeah.
He's not
Why we
looking.
love him.
Yeah, exactly. And like Gary said, there's some ego and some pride that play into that, where he's like, oh, I'm gonna get the best of them. And I'm fine with that because the end result is what I want.
Yeah, he's a little bit the other politicians like Biden and others. They have egos too, but their egos has to do with their pocketbook and power.
Yep,
that's what they're focused on. They're not focused on doing a good job for the American people and getting in history books that way. They'll have someone like Joe Biden. He'll have the media line for him for the next 10, 20 years to actually put him in the hall of, try to put him in
one of the best presidents ever.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I mean, that's what they're going to try to do. And you could already see it. You're already seeing it. Oh, he did the right thing leaving office or leaving the campaign. No, he didn't.
What a courageous move of him. No, Obama blackmailed him and forced him out of the running. Let's
right.
They were going to remove him one way or the other. They threatened him, and he probably wasn't on the phone with Biden. He was probably on the phone with Jill because she was the one that's kind of running the show over there. But it's crazy what's going on, and the collusion that we have between the uniparty that really does sum it up, and that's why both of them are against Trump. You don't see Lindsey Graham coming out and actually campaigning for Trump or, whatever right wing or Republican, all the big names out there, they're just quiet. And behind the scenes, they're colluding against them. And that's the point.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of those big name Republicans you're talking about being surrogates for him on MSNBC or CNN, going talking them up. And the reason is because they're just as much against them as the Democrats and the media is.
100%.
They want these wars all over the world because they get that money from these military industrial complex contracts.
100%. And they're highly invested in these countries, directly or indirectly. And that's a real problem. Again, if we went back to an idea of hey, guess what? You can't make more money while you're in office than you made prior to being in office. And by the way, you can only be there for 4 or 8 years. That's it. As a congressperson, you can't make money off of anything that you were associated with. That should be in law. And, it's just like the average person, if we have insider trading, we don't have laws against that for Congress, but we do for, you or I, if suddenly one of our friends works at another company, like, hey man, next week we're going to be coming out with this big thing. And I go and I buy a bunch of stock in said company, I could potentially go to jail for it. But not them.
You got any tips for us?
Well,
exactly right. I mean, they know when the IPOs are coming out, they take advantage. And I'm sick of seeing these people go to Washington, D.C. to make their living. It's disgusting. Nancy Pelosi, disgusting. So yeah, you guys are right on point.
Yeah, that's the reason you need term limits.
Yep.
Kind of circles around.
Yep.
100%.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I just want to say I have been looking at some comments over at Rumble. Look like we were kind of monitoring that in other ways too. But I see you guys over there, and also sending prayers for Florida tonight. There's a lot of chatter about the incoming hurricane over there.
Yeah, Jeff on. I don't know if you're still on, but man, I hope you guys are good to go over there. And everybody else out there in Florida, stay safe out there. That goes back to, everything that we talk about on this channel, and, what we represent as a business is, making sure that you all are independently capable, whether it's self-defense, whether it's making sure that you have food, water, taking care of yourselves and your family first. That's something that you just gotta push for. And, whether it's, again, self-defense, cops aren't going to be there. Emergency services aren't going to be there. Become as self-sufficient as you possibly can. I mean, that really does sum up everything we teach here at Paramount.
Yep. And part of what feeds into that is exactly the topics we're talking about tonight, with independent thinking and
100%.
not being censored, so that you can create your own thoughts based on the information that you have.
Yep. It's not unconstitutional. It's not against the point of the First Amendment is to protect speech that's not always right.
Yeah.
It's always not. It's also to protect speech you don't always agree with.
Yep.
100%. Yeah. As a matter of fact, it's there to protect speech that is offensive.
Yeah.
Right.
If you look at how things have come along, if we had applied the same standard to most of the people on the left, like, could you imagine back in, the 90s, 80s, 90s, and going back even further, or whatever else, they were free to push whatever ideology they wanted to, whether it's trans rights, homosexual rights. If back in the 90s and 2000s, we were basically banning any sort of speech that said, hey, you know what, people were saying then that, trans, a trans woman's a woman, or whatever else. Number one, it's scientifically false. It's, most people don't agree with that assessment. And if we suppressed speech like that, they wouldn't be where they are today. But we afforded them, we the American people and our founders and our Constitution afforded them a privilege that now they want to take away from people on the flip side of, people that disagree with those arguments. So, I just, it's so ironic when you think about it from that perspective. Everything that now that we allow and is almost socially accepted, and some of these things that are blatantly false that are accepted as true to by some people, those ideas would never have been allowed to exist if we enforced the same standards that they want enforced on us.
Yeah,
they're Marxists.
Yeah. Oh, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah. What's funny is, they have these words: misinformation, disinformation. The one that gets me more than anything else that they want to censor is malinformation. And if you look up what malinformation is, it's information that's true but goes against the narrative.
Wow.
So I like this. So you don't want people to know the truth. You might just say that.
Yeah.
Right.
Just say that.
Make
Just
it
be
easier.
honest. Don't play these games.
True. It's true. It's information that's true, but could cause harm. That's the other way that they define it as well.
Yeah.
That was one of the ways that they defined it. Back with COVID, right? Like, it's true that some people are being, people are dying or people are being forever harmed by certain vaccinations. But we don't want you to talk about that, because then we could cause vaccine hesitancy.
That's right.
It's like you guys said earlier, it's 1984, and it's more true than Orwell ever thought, I think, would possibly come about.
He'd be rolling over in his grave if he could see today.
He's like, I didn't think that book would be a documentary.
Yeah.
Right.
He's like, are you guys punking me? Are you guys for real? This wasn't a script for you to follow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a crazy world out there. So what's on the horizon for Patriot News?
Romeo?
Well, I mean, deliver the news, is make videos every day on different specific topics that, make sense to cover. And it's difficult because they really shadow ban us at the next level, but we just keep whittling away at it.
Mm-hmm.
So I can say to all content creators out there, don't give up.
Yeah. Well, I do a show with Lisa 3 days a week. Me and Romeo do a show just on Twitter, Rumble, because we talk about topics that they don't like us talking about on YouTube.
Sure.
And we also have a new host coming on the channel, William Archibald. He has his own channel. He's going to come on here and do shows on Thursdays. So we're trying to expand a little bit, trying to get other creators on the channel. And also, me and Romeo is going to create a different channel. We're starting on Patreon, and it's going to be a discerning truth. And yeah, we're going to be doing history, Bible, religion, stuff like that on there.
Cool.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always been my approach to this. Is at the end of the day, I do videos that I want to do. I don't think about how many people are going to view it. I don't think about how it's going to be suppressed. There was a time where the channel started growing. I was like, how do I get the same message out without kind of clicking those topics or saying the things that
Triggering YouTube?
Yeah, triggering, it's going to trigger YouTube algorithm. How do I get the same information? And there really is no answer to it. I think at this point, like for instance, our channel, I think it's number one, all of our videos automatically get demonetized, all of them. Sometimes I can go back and get them to, review it. But even videos that have not violated one thing often get demonetized. So I think you're right. I think the thing is to not let, what they want to do is discourage everybody, self-censor, and just get off platform. And I think that's the last thing we're going to do, as well as continue to make people aware. One of the things I always talk about in every video is like, hey, make sure you like and subscribe. But I just want you to know that, YouTube is not a friend of the Second Amendment. If you value the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, quit watching YouTube. Go watch Rumble. Still like, subscribe, all those things. We want to get this message out, and this is where the views are. But if you think those things are important, you got to quit giving your views to YouTube. And hopefully that's what people will do, because we got to, I don't know the answer, but hopefully things like Rumble, X, they will be, I don't know, they'll succeed because they're standing up for what they believe in.
Yeah.
Hopefully the platforms will get a little bit better and compete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Rumble, it does.
Yeah. I was about to say the same thing. Rumble has a lot of things they need to do to catch up.
Yeah.
Like there's one thing from the average viewer side, but you guys know, like from a creator side, like it's so clunky. It takes videos like 5 times longer to upload. Sometimes they just stop uploading. They're just definitely not as user friendly. That's for sure.
Yeah, I have a problem with looking for material on there. Sometimes it's gotten better, but I remember like a couple of years ago, it had issues finding material on there, and now it's gotten a lot better. But even now, when you do a live, there's a lot of steps you got to go through, and also, like you said, uploading can be a hassle too because of how long it takes. So, sometimes it'll take anywhere from 3 to 4 times longer than it does on YouTube. It's like, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll post a video that, it can be 8 o'clock at night that I plan on posting 9 a.m. the next morning or whatever it is. So I'll upload both videos at the same time, and I'll get up and, YouTube's been done forever, and
get up in the next morning.
And yeah, it'll be like another day and a half or whatever, freaking either Rumble upload, or what it'll eventually do, it usually just like times out and I got to start the upload all over again.
Right.
So it's definitely clunky. The search features on it are a little challenging on all of those things, but you know, what it's going to take is more people to go over there. I mean, that's the solution, is when they get more eyes, more views, more people on there, more money, all those things, more money. You know, one thing I did notice, one of the things they had, videos limited to 15 gigs, which if you're uploading 4K videos, you know, 15 gigs isn't much. They just recently doubled it to 30 gigs. So I was happy to see that, because a lot of times I'll have to downsample a video that I'm uploading to Rumble compared to YouTube.
There's some other things as far as, you know, paying creators too that we've encountered that really need some work on that side as well.
Oh yeah. I've had mine for 4 years and I've made $200.
Yeah.
We haven't been able to cash a check from them.
Yeah. Because even
It's
though
not
they're
uncommon.
even though they're in U.S. funds, they're Canadian checks, so it's a different system. And U.S. banks have such a problem with it. I ended up the 2 small checks we had received from them. I think it totaled, may I say?
Yeah.
It totaled maybe $75, right, between the 2 checks that we had received. I had tried at several institutions to deposit or cash.
Well, let's give them some background. So, you know, the 2 ways that you can get paid on Rumble is either PayPal.
I was going to go there, but
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So, ended up the only way to utilize the funds from these checks, get these checks cashed, is my bank ends up having to physically mail the checks off to a clearinghouse that knows how to clear Canadian checks. Then they'll send the funds back to my bank, which will eventually 6 weeks from now get deposited in my account. Oh, and by the way, there's a $30 per check clearinghouse fee.
Oh, no.
To the point that my banker was like, do you even want to bother? And I was like, well, yes, I still will net a little bit of money. But what Gary was alluding to is there's 2 ways to get paid on Rumble, correct? It's either by check, which obviously is an issue for us, or via PayPal, which is another huge issue for us because PayPal is very anti-2A.
Yep.
At one point, they stole almost $8,000 of our money, and they have permanently banned us from the platform. So
permanently banned us. We cannot use it as our business. We cannot use it as individuals personally either.
Yeah.
So we're on the
watch
persona non
list.
grata. Yeah, freaking, we do not exist.
And by the way, Venmo is also owned by PayPal too, so no Venmo for us as well. Oh, Stripe owned us as well. Stripe, Square, PayPal, Venmo. Yeah, we've been
see what I did with them, and I was like, I've noticed I'm making about $10 every month.
Yeah,
and I'm like this. All right. Just use that for the lives because I'm paying $10 so I can do a live on there.
Well, there you go. That's a good way.
That's why I've been doing. I'm like, just put it on that.
Yeah.
Right.
No Canadian checks to mess with.
I don't have to mess with PayPal either.
Sean, throw up that AM Atkinson. So off topic, Gary, is there an update on it's actually Project 713? Is that something you were considering on still doing? If so, what's needed to assist you in the project? So yes, we're still doing it. This is something I was talking with Matt and Romeo prior to. I kind of had to step away a little bit just for my own, I don't know, mental health, aggravation, sanity, whatever it is, a little bit. And on top of that, you know, I was doing a lot of content on the Trump assassination attempt. And, you know, again, we have a business that we got to run that's always like, I don't have time to do any of this stuff. But I thought it was really important. And I still do. So the answer is yes. As far as what we need for that, you can shoot me an email. I'm still wanting to keep that going, and we're still looking into a lot of other things. One of the things I want to talk with Romeo and Matt with as we kind of wrap up is the upcoming election. You know, that is another area that I want to utilize and leverage Project 713 for in doing what we can to investigate, to expose any craziness that is happening and will happen with election fraud. So the answer is yes. As far as what we need, shoot me an email and we'll see kind of where we can best utilize you if that's something that you're wanting to do, and we'll kind of go from there. So, you know, I think that's a good segue going into the 2024 election. We saw what happened in the 2020 election. You know, I already have some thoughts as far as what I'm seeing as far as trends that make me very suspicious about what's going on, but I'd like to hear what you guys have to say looking at the 2024 election.
I think they've brought 20 to 30 million illegal immigrants in. I think they have as many ballots as they need. But here's the deal. They're not going to be able to wholesale cheat like they did last time. In my heart, I guess I believe Trump is going to win, because I think he would defeat her handily, like 65 to 35, like that. But I think that there's going to be an amount of fraud, and I just hope that amount of fraud doesn't get to the point where it's outcome determinative again, because the last election was decided in 3 states by 50,000 votes or less,
and a few suitcases in the middle of the night.
Yeah. No, and what really concerns me about that are these insane polls that we keep seeing where, suddenly Kamala is several points ahead and all this other stuff. They are gaslighting everybody and prepping the objective so that they can have an argument that they actually won. And that's what those polls are designed to do. They're designed to deceive people, to kind of set the playing field and prepare people for like, hey, there's a chance that Kamala is actually going to win. And there's not. Like, it's just, it's insanity to watch this. It's just, it will be an interesting, I'm curious to see what's going to happen after November 6th, regardless of who wins.
The polls, I look at them, especially the Fox News polls. Those are the ones that kind of get me, where they're showing Kamala Harris like 3 or 4 points ahead. I'm like, it's voter suppression too. It's all about trying to convince the conservatives and the Republican base that Trump's not going to win, so there's no point in going out and vote.
Right.
Now, the states I'm looking at, I'm kind of interested in when it comes to the fraud, is probably North Carolina, because of what happened there with this latest hurricane, and also now Florida with this one. I'm kind of curious of what's going to happen there during these elections, because in North Carolina, parts of Georgia and Florida, they're not even running mail, and they're saying they're not going to be able to run mail until like 4 or 5 weeks later after it happened. That's after election. So,
and how many of those people can't even get to a poll?
Exactly that. Yeah. And not only that, since the mail ain't running, they can't, get a ballot that way either, or get it out that way. So,
yeah. And then never mind all the, thousands upon thousands of people that are displaced that, live in Georgia or live in Florida or North Carolina, and are now, staying with family and friends in another state, another county, or whatever it is.
And when you think about those areas we're talking about, I think of them as probably pretty pro-Trump.
Yeah, they're
with the exception of Asheville. I think Asheville is a pretty liberal big city. But I mean, Florida and then rural North Carolina, I think of those two as pretty pro-Trump.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting. I'll tell you that.
Yep.
And I also found it interesting, you had 2 states, Arizona and Pennsylvania. They said that they're not going to have the results of the election until 2 or 3 days later.
Yeah.
I found that interesting too. Yeah. I was like, that just tells me you're going to do the same thing you did last time.
Yep.
It's insane that we have more automated voting than ever before, and it takes 5 times as long to get results. Like, it makes 0 sense.
No sense at all.
Yep.
What that does, it allows them to come up with a tabulation of wins and losses, profits and losses here, and like, okay, this is how many that we got to vote. We got to make up the vote.
They're telling you they need an extra day or 2 because they're gonna backfill the vote, and they got to know what Trump's numbers are before they do it. So they know what they need.
Absolutely.
You got to know the numbers to make up the difference. I mean, that's right. That takes time, Romeo. That's not something that can be done in a couple hours. So we're going to need a couple days. You got to come back in 2 days. We will have this election wrapped up for Kamala. I mean, we'll have this. We'll
have the real results.
We'll have the results going. And if you cry foul on any of this, we're going to call you an insurrectionist.
Yeah.
That's
How are we
right.
going to convince them that we need an extra day? Oh, tell them the toilet ran over.
Yeah.
Right.
It worked in the last one.
It did. It did. It's hopefully, I don't know. They definitely don't have the opportunities that they had during COVID, and I think a lot more people will be watching. But with that being said, if you have an entire government, an entire media that is complicit in everything and aren't willing to even investigate or try to find out, and the reality is the way that we have our voting laws set up, our election integrity doesn't exist. It's easy to commit voter fraud. It's very hard to prove that voting fraud took place. So it's just one of those things that's, there's no control over it. None whatsoever.
And they got the courts too.
Yep.
So they got the trifecta.
Yep.
Yeah. And then you saw what the news story out of Georgia, the election in Fulton County, the election people, they hired 800 people and only 15 are Republican.
Mm.
Yeah.
That sounds fair.
Yeah.
That sounds fair. The Republican National Committee is suing over it. And I'm like, well, at least y'all are doing something, I guess, being proactive.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's when we go back to the establishment Republicans, that's why they just sat on their laurels during the last one, because again, if it was a different candidate, they might have fought a little bit harder, but with Trump, they were just going to sit back and watch it all unfold and stay quiet about it and not even care.
Yeah, I mean, you see a big difference between 2020 and 2020 and 2000.
Yeah,
the way they fought, the difference was, and they fought really hard in 2000, and the Republicans won that.
Yep.
In 2020, they're like this. Let's go to the next thing.
Old Bush v. Gore, the hanging chads problem.
Yeah, that was the first election I ever voted in.
Me as well. Me as well. It was the first time I didn't even care about politics until that took place.
Yeah.
I was a young, strapping 20-year-old. I remember that because that's when I started listening to Rush Limbaugh. I didn't even know. I had no idea what a Republican was. All I knew is that, like, I think Gore's a dirtbag. I don't want him to win. That was literally the extent of my calculus on that.
When that was happening, when the hanging Chad and that stuff was happening, I bought this shirt. It said, instead of Gore Lieberman, it said Sore Loserman. And I was like, that's awesome. But it was the first election I was ever involved in. I went and campaigned and stuff. But when it came to Rush Limbaugh, I remember listening to him when I was 9 years old with my dad when we'd go fishing, because he would listen to reruns.
Right.
And I started getting my education in politics then, because I was like, Dad, what's a Republican? I didn't know. I was 9, man.
Right.
Listen, if you don't teach your children, somebody will. And you got to make
That's
sure
right.
you're teaching them what you want them to know.
That's right. If you don't indoctrinate your children, somebody will.
Yeah.
And they're doing it all the time, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah, my dad did a good job of it.
That's good.
There you go.
That's good. Well, gentlemen, I think we'll wrap things up. If anybody else has any final questions, you throw them up there. If it looks really good, I might humor it.
You have to pay me
But
extra to
look,
stay
we
late.
really appreciate you guys coming on. We'll definitely have you guys again on in the future, and maybe we'll collaborate on some different videos or content or whatever else. I'm up for anything. I definitely want to get with you guys. We'll talk more about the upcoming election. Definitely, I'll definitely be doing some live coverage of the election.
Night.
I'm not going to sleep. I don't care what happens. I'm going to be watching and documenting everything, of course.
I remember the first time Trump was elected, my parents happened to be visiting, and my dad and Gary were in the living room watching results roll in. And when it was finally determined that Trump was going to be the winner, my dad's like, all right, I can go to bed now. Have a good night.
It was like 3, 4 in the morning. It was ridiculous. It was
He's
really
like, I'm good now. I'm happy. I can go to sleep.
Well,
Yeah,
good.
it's awesome.
Well, you guys stay put. We'll talk after we close this out. But to everybody else out there, thank you for watching. Make sure you share this. Get more people coming to watch with us again every Wednesday. The other thing I think I'm going to start doing, folks, is we're going to start doing some more podcasts that are not live, just giving us a chance to be able to go through and edit those, clean those up a little bit, and we'll start doing some more interviews like that as well. So we got a lot more content coming up. We got a lot. I got several videos coming up, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, you know, we're here. And for all your goods, make sure you go to ParamountTactical.com. You know what stuff we sell. Or come visit us in the shop, or come train with us. You'll be glad you did. But until next time, stay armed, stay ready. We'll talk to you soon.